So welcome everybody to Budgeting and Financial Planning presented by Toya and Jami. I see a few familiar names over there, so thank you so much for attending this week and welcome everyone who's new. My name's Lizzie and I'm the Operations Coordinator at the Center for Relationships. This is Care Week, our way to give back to the community. It's our 8th year and the 2nd year taking it fully virtual.
Yes.
The Center for Relationships is a community counseling and outreach center based in Austin, Texas. We focus on relationship therapy, relationship education, provide mental health services to individuals, couples, groups, and provide educational resources just like this webinar. I am going to present our two wonderful presenters today, Ms. Toya Foster and Jami Brown. Toya Foster is a licensed professional counselor who provides comprehensive psychological care for couples and individuals. She is our Director of Operations here at the center. She is Gottman Level 2 trained, works in trust recovery, rebuilding relationships, family of origin issues, anxiety, and emotional support for life's challenges. Toya believes in the potential of what has been broken or hurt to be healed in a safe, supportive, and non-judgmental environment. Toya focuses on making the most of her time with family and friends outside of counseling, spend quality mindfulness time for herself and her son, who's pretty cute, by the way, and giving her valuable insights on intentional self-care. Toya is a wealth of knowledge. I've certainly learned a lot, and she has experience in managing business and leading the team at the Center for Relationships.
Yay.
And we also have Miss Jami Brown. Jami has a BA in psychology and a master's in professional counseling from Texas State University, Texas State. She is also the client coordinator for the Center for Relationships. She is Gottman Level Trained 1 and CACREP accredited. Jami's populations of specialization include couples wanting to learn how to reconnect emotionally or physically, parents learning to co-parent or connect with their teenagers, and individuals experiencing life transitions or processing difficult emotions and experiences. Jami enjoys helping people recognize and reach their full potential, and her counseling style involves working collaboratively with each person's goals, interests, and efforts. Jami also likes to bring humor and playfulness into sessions to provide an atmosphere of comfort and acceptance. And on that note, I will let you two take it away.
Thank you, Lizzie Montana. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Budgeting and Financial Planning. Yeah, we're going to talk about money, what to do with it, how to count it, how to save it, how to spend it, all those fun things. So I have a co-conspirator with me, Jami, who I'm just excited about presenting today. And please stop us at any time. Both of us are she's more accounting-y, I'm more, financy. And I think we're gonna offer you guys some really good information today. And I'm more specifically going to take a pause between each slide in case people are writing things down. And if I do go too fast, please ask me to put it back so that you can write down what you want to write down. And please ask as many questions as you want. One thing that Lizzie didn't mention, because I didn't tell her, is that I do have an MBA in finance. So before my life as a therapist, I was a financial advisor and helped clients with financial planning. In my practice here at the Center for Relationships, I work with high-level executives, doctors, surgeons, entrepreneurs, and business owners, and I don't necessarily challenge. I help them come to the understanding about where they get their ideas about money from, right? So that's something that we're going to talk about a little bit today. So without further ado, I'll give you an opportunity to say something if you'd like.
I think you pretty much covered it all, Toya, but I'm looking forward to sharing the information that we have and answering any questions that you guys have.
Awesome. Then let's get rolling. All right. Owning your money. Most of us know we should save money, right? some of us, maybe all of us know that we should save money, but when it comes to actually doing it, people tend to fall into two camps, non-planners and planners. I'm a non-planner. Non-planners typically save when they can, perhaps putting a small amount into a workplace retirement plan, hoping that everything will work out in the long run. Planners generally know what they're saving for. They know how much they need to put away and how long it'll take them to reach their goals. So I used to be a non-planner, but I am a planner now. Which one sounds more like you? If you're a planner, if you're a non-planner, only 33% of Americans have a written financial plan. That's not a lot, according to Schwab's 2021 Modern Wealth Survey. So they did the survey during the pandemic, right? Because there were reports, which I was sharing with Jamie before we started the webinar, that during the pandemic, reports were coming out that Americans had more in their savings accounts than they had in the past 80 years. And I was like, where's the money? But it was because maybe we weren't driving as much. And so we're saving money from gas, right? We weren't going to the grocery store as much. Maybe we weren't eating out as much. Lots of things. We just weren't spending as much money as we had been before. So if only 33% of Americans have a written financial plan, of the rest, almost half, the other 66% people, said they didn't have enough money to make a plan worthwhile. Others also said it was too complicated or they didn't have time to develop a plan. As we go through this presentation, I'm wondering if you can begin to think about which camp you're in. Because today I'm hoping that what we present to you will help with all of your owning your own money, that you can own it better, smarter, more intentionally, and more deliberately, starting today.
So here are some key areas that we're going to be discussing today. One of those is income. This is your salary, your hourly wages, any bonuses or pensions, or any dividends that you receive. We're also going to be talking about expenses or debt. You know, most of us have at least some form of that. This is your rent or your mortgage, your taxes, utilities, your food, the entertainment that you want to pay for, you know, travel, credit card bills, loans, all kinds of things fall under this category. Then there's the interest rates. This is, you know, any loans that you have are going to have some type of interest rate, such as a home loan, a car loan, personal loan. We're also going to be talking about savings. It's that key word that most of us want to have savings in some way, shape, or form, but we're really not sure how you can necessarily get to that point. What does it look like? What are the different ways that you can save? So any cash that you have, savings account, your checking account even, any money market accounts, all of that falls under savings. Then we have investments. And this includes, you know, stocks or bonds, mutual funds, any real estate that you have. If you own a private company or commodities or any art, all of these fall under this category. This is a category that oftentimes confuses people because there's so many pieces that fall under investing. And so we're going to talk a little bit about what that looks like. And then there's the budget. There's that one big word, budget, that just scares a lot of people. This is the financial plan based on your income and your expenses. And we're going to be discussing this a little bit more in detail on how you actually create a budget, what it looks like, and how you can make sure that you are actually maintaining that budget too.
Yeah, Jamie, from your slide, it's really important, those financial terms, right? It's 2022. Lots of us haven't been exposed to this in our younger adult selves. Debt, of course, yes, we know, but investments and savings, and maybe even budgets, and maybe interest rates, right? Yeah. Some important factors, financial literacy indicators, right? So this has to do with how well or how comfortable are you talking about money, not just talking about money, using the tools that people use to transact money business. So it could be having a financial advisor. It could be working with your banker at your bank. It could be having an insurance guy who sells you insurance. It could be, you know, that coffee can under your bed. It could be stocks and bonds that you might get from your job, but talking about financial literacy, like being aware of all the ways in which you can use your money to grow it or save it or hold it or hide it or compound it or invest it. So I'll start with the use of e-finance. Probably in the past 10 years, the last decade, e-finance has skyrocketed up in many ways, not just for typical consumers, people, right? But for businesses too. Before, if you wanted to buy a car, you had to go to the car lot and buy a car. Today, you can buy a car on your phone. You can buy a car on your computer. You can buy a car over the phone. You don't actually have to go anywhere and the car will get delivered to you. That's a form of e-finance. You're going to finance in some way that car over the phone. Before, if you wanted to get a loan for that car, you'd have to go to the bank and fill out some paperwork, right? Now you don't have to. You can make a call. You don't even have to be a member of the bank that you call or the financial institution, right? They can pull your credit and you sign your papers all without seeing anyone face to face. This applies to businesses too. Never has conducting business been more easy than it is today because of the use of e-finance. And so almost everything that we're going to talk about today, in terms of all the things that you can do with your money, budgeting, coming up with a plan, all of those things, you can use e-finance tools, whether they're apps from your phone's app store or sites that you visit on your website. So e-finance is huge. Financial awareness has to do with how aware of you are you of your own financial situation at any given point in time. I see a raised hand. I don't see the chat. Can someone chat me the question, or is there a question?
It looks like we have someone who raised their hand. If you want to chat me, or we can also allow speaking. Not sure. I think maybe just chat right now and we can open up questions later. Yeah.
Sounds good.
All right.
Mm-hmm. Financial awareness has to do with how aware are you of your financial situation? Like, does it cause you stress? Are you glad about it? Are you working on it? Are you aware of whether or not you have insurance and what insurance tools mean for your life? Do you have a 401k at work? And how much you have invested in there, or how much you're actively investing if your company is matching? How much money you have in the bank? How much money you spend every day, every week, every month, every year, right? Financial awareness. Financial knowledge and skills has to do with whether or not you're doing this yourself, right? Creating a budget yourself, creating your own financial plan, maybe even buying and selling your own stocks and bonds and setting up your own IRA. Do you have the financial knowledge and skills to do this on your own? You don't have to, right? Many times you can go sign up with a company who will do that for you for a really small fee. So you don't have to have the financial knowledge and skills to do this on your own anymore, but you could. There's also the attitude towards finance and money. This is what I was referring to earlier when I'm talking to people about finance and money, to help them understand like what their position is and what does it mean and what is their buying power and how much debt do they have versus income. How do they feel about raising prices or accepting another job if they want to meet certain financial goals? Basically, what is their attitude? Are they anxious about it? Does it scare them? Is there some fear involved? Are they happy? Are they aggressive? And if we move over to the left, the financial behavior has to do with what that anxiety, that fear, or that gratitude makes you do. How do you react to your money? Are you a penny pincher? Does it make you hoard your money? Does it make you not want to go out and buy things that you need or things that you want? If you're in a relationship or a partnership, is the behavior of money between you and your partner an issue in your relationship? One might be a saver and one person might be a spender. How do you two reconcile or make compromises on what you're going to purchase or how you spend your money or how you save your money. And then there are managing financial risks, right? This might have to do with your age and your income. When you're young, the thesis or the preposition is that you have more time on your side so that you can afford to be more risky with your financial investments, that you can taking a higher risk. The older you are, we're less risk averse. We're risk averse. We don't want to take a lot of risk with our money, because if we lose everything, we would probably never be able to make up, the loss with the amount of working years that we have left to work, if that makes sense. We're going to talk about that a little bit later, but managing your financial risks has to do with creating like a portfolio that has lots of instruments in it, that some might be risky and some less risky, so that you have a balance in there. Your exposure to risk is whatever you can tolerate based on your age and your income and your own goals and preferences. And then there's financial culture, right? You might think about this in terms of, how you can go on TV and scroll to like MSNBC or what's another cable channel, or channel on the radio where they're just talking about finance and they're talking about stocks and all the movements. That's a financial culture. You might have grown up in a house where the financial culture was one of making smart money decisions, being mindful of how much things cost, saving, earning an allowance, and then help being guided to know what to do with that money. If you're the child of a baby boomer, if you're a baby boomer, which means you're the child of a boomer, boomers' parents, right, had parents who went through the Depression. So like my parents grew up with parents who grew up poor and who learned to recycle things and use them again and not spend a lot of money. So my parents did a lot of saving, a lot of money in coffee cans, banks, money in different banks. And some of that came to me, not much, because I'm totally a spender. So I saw them do that. And, it was the culture of our house to save and always save and save and save. So anyway, these are important factors that dictate our financial literacy. All of these things combined together. Let me give a few minutes before I switch to the next slide. A few seconds, I should say. Financial plan and budget depend on one key component to make it work: income. You have to have money. If you don't have money coming in, none of it will work. And budgeting is a big part of financial planning, because it helps you see how you're spending money today and then where you can make changes or adjustments based on the plan that you have. Once you've built a plan, you can adjust your budget. So I'm talking now sort of about the financial plan and a budget. You really need to have both. The budget comes first. Once you create a budget, you're essentially doing the math to figure out how much money you bring in each month in take home pay. So after you've paid taxes and insurance through your job, for example, and for your 401 contribution, if you have that, how much take home pay you have, and then where you spend your money in the different categories and how much you spend. So for gas, rent, utilities, food, clothing, socialization, insurance, all of those things. There are many ways to allocate how you spend your money for that budget. And here's a general guideline to consider: that any budget must cover all of your needs and some of your wants. And this is key, because a lot of things, one thing that a lot of people who create a budget don't include is an emergency fund and money for the future, but that does belong in your budget. And the key to keeping a budget is to track your spending on a regular basis. right? This is something that I do every week. On Sunday, I sit down, I pull up my banking app, and I have my little spreadsheet, and I just put in the numbers. And their calculations are always there, and then I can see how much I spent. Well, I got to tell you, Chick-fil-A took a lot of my money. And so I had to scale that back, because when I saw how much I was spending on Chick-fil-A for my family every week, I was like, this is ridiculous. I should own stock, but I don't. So having the budget is a good idea because it helps you see where your money is going, right? If I didn't have the budget, yes, the people in the drive-through know me by name. Yes, they already know what we're going to order because we always get the same things, but that's not the point. I go and they treat me real good. So that's part of the reason why I still go back. But I wouldn't have any idea about cumulatively how much money I spend there every week, unless I looked at the weekly total. And financial literacy not only involves the ability to count your money, right? So keeping a budget and being able to see, am I net positive, or am I net negative? It also tests our ability to evaluate the costs and benefits associated with the decisions that we make. So the decision that I made was to stop going to Chick-fil-A so much. I bought the Chick-fil-A sauce at the grocery store, and I use my air fryer to make some chicken nuggets, and I say it's the same thing, right?
All right, so what actually is budgeting and how do you do it? Let's take a look. So budgeting looks at what happens with your financial picture now, and it helps you prioritize how you're spending and saving your money on a regular basis. One of the key pieces is you want to make sure that you're keeping up with it, which is what Toya was mentioning earlier, is actually tracking it, taking a look at how much money you're spending in different categories. So if you have a take-home pay of, say, $2,000 a month, how can you pay for housing, food, insurance, healthcare, debt repayment, and fun without running out of money? That's a lot to cover with a limited amount. And this is a zero-sum game. The answer is to make a budget, which often requires a lifestyle change. That's the piece that a lot of people say it feels like a punishment. And it's really not meant to be a punishment. It's really a way for you to actually think about yourself for the future, not just focusing on what's happening now.
Jamie, that picture looks a lot like me at Chick-fil-A.
Girl, I feel you, honestly. It was amazing when I started looking at how much money I spent on eating out each week. I was like, yep, that's me right there. I'm just eating my money.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you actually create a budget? We talked about what it is, but how do you actually make one? So to create a budget, you must first identify what your monthly or weekly income, expenses, and other financial accounts are. So you need to decide, do you want to create a monthly or a weekly budget? Make sure, see which one might fit you a little bit better. If you feel like you have a little bit of a tighter budget, it might be easier to have a weekly one. You can track it a little bit more easily over a shorter period of time. If you want to create a monthly one, that's perfectly acceptable too. I've tried it both ways. But remember, your expenses should be less than your income. If you're spending more than you're making, you're kind of going to end up lopsided, right? So the next piece is that you want to create financial goals. Do you want to pay off debt? Do you want to increase your savings? Do you want to decrease your spending? Maybe eat out less, maybe buy less stuff. Sometimes it can be very therapeutic to just spend our money, but it doesn't always do us well in the long run, right? So your financial goals will help you determine what your budget actually looks like. And that's what Toya was mentioning earlier when she said you kind of need both a budget and a financial plan. They go hand in hand. So this is part of that. So once you decided what your financial goals are, once you have the different accounts all in front of you, then you get to calculate what your expected income is. This is based on your hourly wage, your salary, or any other regular income that you have. Then you need to calculate your expected expenses. This is your rent, your mortgage, your loan payments, internet bill, all those things that are pretty regular. They remain constant each month or each week even. Then you want to calculate your variable expenses to the best of your ability. The key part here is to use realistic numbers. These are the categories that you can control. This is your groceries, your eating out, entertainment, retail. All of those fall under this category. So there's a bit more than just figuring out what your expenses are. You want to identify which ones remain constant and which ones can you actually change yourself. So then you want to calculate your estimated remaining income and allocate based on your financial goals. So what does that actually mean? Well, if your goal is to pay off debt, allocate an amount of your expenses or your excess income to go towards debt. So if you've got student loans, if you have a car loan and you want to pay your car loan off sooner than the 5 years that they gave you, then you would allocate a little bit of your excess income for that. If your goal is to increase savings, then decide if you want to use an existing savings or investment account or set one up if you'd like to create a new one. If you don't have one, then that's the time for you to go ahead and decide what you want and set it up. Then you're going to allocate an amount of your excess income to put in savings. What I would always recommend is start out small. If you've got, say, $100 left over, then start out with a manageable amount. If you can, most of the time we can adjust to missing $20 here or there. You know, if we've got $20 extra each month, we're probably not going to miss it. But you would increase it little by little as you get used to, you know, not spending that amount of money. So increase it gradually over time. If your goal is to decrease spending, calculate how much you typically spend in the categories you'd like to decrease. Decide on an amount that you're willing to decrease it to. Again, make sure this is realistic. If you spend $200 on groceries each week, you may not want to decrease your limit to $100 on the first trip, because then, you know, you're going to be very, very limited. You're really cutting your budget in half. So the next piece there is to think about any challenges you might face when making these changes. So if you're spending $200 each week on groceries, then, you know, what are your challenges going to be? Well, do you just buy less snacks? Do you buy less, I don't know, maybe less bread in one sitting if you're trying to cut out carbs, you know, whatever everybody's trying to do, right? So think about what the challenges are going to be. Then come up with ways that you can face those challenges. If your goal is to eat out less, but you know that you forget to go grocery shopping every week, you might want to look into maybe a meal kit deliveries option. Being prepared for suspected challenges makes it easier to face those challenges as they pop up, rather than waiting until they actually do. And then you're trying to figure out, what would I do now? So just think about what could possibly happen. The next piece is, once you've created your plan, you want to actually execute it. So find a way to track your spending, then monitor this against your budget. You know, there's programs like Quicken, or you can use an Excel spreadsheet, or you can use Google Sheets. There's all kinds of different things that you can use. There's tons of free online spreadsheets and templates already that are created for this purpose. And if one of your goals is to maybe set a little bit of money aside for a savings account, you could try setting up an auto draft payment. That way you don't have to remember. It's one less thing that you have to remember to do. So if you think it'd be beneficial, set up those payments as well. So then you want to monitor your progress, and you want to reassess after some time. If you're noticing that you have really good success in one area, or maybe you found an area of change a little bit too challenging, reevaluate your goals and, you know, see if there's any other behavioral changes you might want to make. If it was super successful, then maybe you want to increase how much you're saving. Or maybe you might want to decrease your budget a little bit more. Say, I want to spend even less money eating out. Or if you found it to be too difficult, then, you know, maybe that change was just a little bit too drastic, and you might want to make that number a little bit smaller or a little bigger, depending on what your goal is.
That's great information. All right. How much should go towards bills and savings? It's pretty standard in finance world, budgeting world, that 50% of your budget should go towards fixed expenses, mortgage, rent, car, daycare, groceries, utilities, those expenses that are with you every month. You can't get away from them. 30% towards your financial goals. This can be anything for as things like saving for a vacation, paying college tuition, retirement in 10 years. It can also include any money that you put into an emergency fund or for insurance premiums. Those financial goals that are for the future. 20% should go towards discretionary spending. This can be the money that you do spend eating out, family fun activities, or buying, the latest tech gadgets. And it's likely the category where you have the most flexibility to spend less at any given time, especially if like there's a gadget that you want to buy that's expensive. You might not spend this discretionary money for a month or two while you save towards that, but you're still socking away the 20%. Your budget is your blueprint for handling your income and expenses on a recurring basis. Your budget should be looked at as often as you can, weekly or monthly, and adjusted as often as you can so that it's meeting you at the place where your needs are. The idea is to make sure that you have enough income to cover all of your usual expenses, with some extra set aside for longer term financial goals. And again, Jamie was talking about some of the ways that you could go about setting up a budget. You can even do it with pen and paper. I did it this way for years, right? And for those of you who even still order checkbooks, we used to use the check register, right? Because we used to do everything with that. It took me a few years before I started using my debit card. I used to say, oh, that debit card is dangerous. Well, now I use the debit card for everything. Occasionally I use checks, but I still use the check register. If 50% of your budget goes towards fixed expenses, which leaves the other 50%, some people think that, wow, I have to make a lot of money in order to make this work. If 50% of my money, because my rent or my mortgage is like 70% of my money. If this sounds like something that fits your scenario, or if you're wondering about that, if I were a financial advisor, I would say, this is sort of upside down. Right now, 70% of your budget goes towards fixed expenses, 30% or 15% towards financial goals, and 10% towards discretionary spending, or maybe 5% for discretionary spending. I'd say, hey, let's get you on a tight budget so that we can save more money now, so that you can pay down some of your debt, for example, or give you time, say in a year, for you to increase your income, either maybe by getting a part-time job or finding something else that you can do to increase your income, or find a less expensive place to live. Right? Doesn't mean that you have to move out now or that you have to figure it out right away. There's time to do that. But the 50-30-20 is the ideal scenario if you have financial goals that include you retiring with, a good amount of money. Lizzie.
Yes, we have a question. Where should we take taxes into account when we're looking at these percentages?
Taxes, if it's from your income, is a fixed expense, right? Even if you pay IRS taxes and it's money that comes out of your paycheck, you're budgeting based on your take-home pay. But if you're a 1099 or you have some other situation where you end up paying taxes that doesn't come out of your paycheck before you receive the money, then it would go into these fixed expenses, because you need to definitely allocate for it. Oh my gosh, you have to have that money going somewhere. I hope that answers your question. If not, let us know. Financial planning. This is where the rubber meets the road for lots of people. You can budget all day long, and you should. It's that savings account, right? The money that you're putting away for your financial goals that allows you to begin to do some financial planning. What are you going to do with the money that you've been saving? What do you want? Do you want to go on vacation? Do you want to open, a brokerage account and start investing your money? Do you want to buy houses and real estate? Do you want to pay cash for a car? Let's talk about it.
Before we talk a little bit more in detail about what exactly is a financial plan and how do you create it, let's talk about the different personality types. So, planning seems like it's more of an organizer type of personality, right? But unfortunately, or not unfortunately, fortunately, planning can actually be tailored to every personality type. So your approach to life can actually influence every single decision that you make, including those that involve your finances. So by understanding the type of person that you are with regard to planning, you can actually take the proper steps towards reaching your financial goals. So you'll have a better understanding of how you might approach something, therefore, how you might want to modify your behaviors. So we're going to talk about the organizers first. These people love lists. Categorizing and arranging everything from their sock drawer to their personal finances gives them that warm and fuzzy feeling. This is right up their alley, right? Well, then you have the architects. They're the masters of both creativity and logic. They not only imagine the future, but design solutions to actually make it happen. So again, this is pretty much up their alley. So then we have the philosophers. This is from the Greek word meaning lover of wisdom. They enjoy thinking about and solving problems. So if they're the ones that are trying to figure out how am I actually going to make this happen, well, this is going to be their strong suit. So then we have the dreamers. These are the free spirits of our world who shake their head in confusion and all those who are scheduling their lives to the last detail. This really might not be something that comes naturally to you, but there's absolutely a way that you can tackle this and still be true to yourself. Then we have the improvisers. They're typically quite self-sufficient with a deep desire for independence and doing things their own way. This is where, creating that goal, that financial goal is really going to speak to them, being able to figure out, okay, this is what I want to do in life. How do I get there? How do I make sure that this happens? Then we have the mavericks. They're unafraid and unapologetic individuals who would rather reshape their world than try to fit into what's currently there. So they'll be able to kind of tailor their budget and their financial plan to whatever they want, what fits their lifestyle. So we're going to take a look at financial planning a little bit more in detail, but I want you to think about which one are you and how might you tackle each of these tasks.
I'm wondering if we can ask our conscientious observers who are with us, if they can put in the chat, what type of approach to life or type of person are they? Are they organizers, architects, philosophers, dreamers, improviser, mavericks? Jamie, which are you?
Say I'm probably a little bit more of an architect. So as a therapist, I definitely have more of that creativity and that, that side of things. But I was in accounting for 7 years prior to being a therapist. So I've got that logical side too. So I like to kind of have a blend of both.
Nice.
What about you, Toya?
I'm an improviser. I'm quite self-sufficient. I know it needs to get done and I can do it because I want to be independent. But I don't always take the advice the advisor gives me. I say, well, can we do it this way? Or can we do it that way? Or I don't want to do that for 10 years. I want to do it for 5 years. So I'm more of an improviser. I don't financial plan by the book. And sometimes, depending on the stock market, I feel like that comes back and bites me in the butt because I'm like, dang it. But Lizzie, can you tell us what the chat is telling us?
Yes, we've got one comment. Dreamer, maybe. I have financial goals, but have a hard time putting them into reality.
Yeah.
Someone else just said philosopher/improviser. Get stuck in the implementation part.
Yeah, that sounds so right. Saving your money is hard work. Parting with your money, even harder. Even if you know it's going to be just over there. Once you expose it to risk, right, then there's some thoughts about making sure that you understand what your money is doing. And, potentially I might lose my money. So all of that is really important. But it does help to understand at your core where you're at, because that helps you understand maybe where your hesitations come from, or not hesitations at all if you're a maverick. And I'll tell a quick story. This wasn't a client. This is when I was a financial advisor. I had someone, he had lots of money. He never spent his money. I would say, where are you all the time? I email you, I call you, you don't come in. And he said, well, I live in Hawaii. And I was like, oh, what do you do there? And he said, nothing. And I said, oh, you just hang out on the beach? And he's like, no, I literally live on the beach. And I was like, why? You have like $3 million in the bank. He was like, money doesn't mean anything to me. I don't want to, use my money and pay for a place in Hawaii. I just live on the beach. And I was like, well, what do you eat? He's like, ramen, fish. What do you do when there's bad weather? Well, then I go get a hotel room. That's a maverick, right? Yeah, living life on his own terms. All right. I'm going to talk a little bit about how financial planning is different than budgeting. When you do financial planning, you're really figuring out how to go from point A to point B. How do I get from where I am with this amount of income that I have? After I do my budgeting, I have this amount of money left over. How do I use that to save for retirement, right? And have a certain dollar amount when I reach, say, 55. How do I do that? That's what financial planning is about. How do I give myself a 50th birthday celebration in, say, Bora Bora, with all my friends and family, and they don't have to pay for a thing. Like, I want to buy the whole resort. We're just going to have that whole resort for a week, right? Gonna need a couple $100,000. How do I get from where I am today with this amount of money to there in the next, say, 2 years? That's financial planning. When you want to be more long-term, right? You're talking about the time value of money. So you have more time to allow your money to grow and compound. If you're thinking about a financial plan that's pretty short-term, like maybe buying a car or putting in a swimming pool at home, more short-term, like I want to be able to save money for a year and then get that pool by summer. More short-term, but it's still talking about going from point A to point B. Financial planning is also about how you'll protect your money. You're going to expose it to a lot of risk or the stock market, or you're going to keep it safe. How you're going to pay down debt, how you're going to grow your money over time to meet big goals, whether you're balancing spending now and saving for the future. What kind of legacy you want to leave behind with your money. So do I want to leave my kids money behind, or do I want to spend it while I'm alive? Spend all my money. Or do I want to leave them something? Right now, today, I'm going to spend all my money. They're not getting anything. Not really. But how do you get from point A to point B? Involves rubbing your coins together to figure that out.
So a financial plan acts as a guide as you go through life's journey. Essentially, it helps you be in control of your income, your expenses, and investments, and allows you to manage your money and achieve your goals. So there's 7 key components. The first is budgeting and taxes, like property or income taxes. Then you have managing liquidity or ready access to cash. Next, you have financing large purchases, such as buying a car or a house. Those are huge purchases that most of us probably don't have $50,000 in cash that you can just go drop on a car real quick, right? So then we have managing your financial risk, which is any risk that has the potential to lose money. You got investing your money and planning for retirement and the transfer of your wealth, which is part of that legacy that Toya was just talking about. Then you have communication and record keeping, talking about actually keeping track of where your finances are at and communicating that to the people who need to know.
Absolutely. This is very similar to what I would help my clients with when I was helping them come up with financial plans. And again, your age, we take your age into consideration before I even try to help you or guide you on the path to creating a plan. How much time are we working with here? How much money are we starting with here? You have $100? Okay, great. Let's see how we can figure this out. You have $100,000? Okay. You have $100,000 in 30 years? No problem. Let's see what we can do. You have $1 million in 2 years? I can work with that too. So it doesn't matter how much money you have, right? If you came in with $100, I would help you begin to increase that, to grow that, and we could still come up with a financial plan for you. It doesn't matter how much you start with, honestly. Even if you have $100, you still have financial goals. You still have the ability to plan with what you do with that money. What is your net worth? Right? I'm sure all of you have probably heard, like, what's your net worth? And I want to say something here that I didn't know before. I went to school and got this degree in finance, that when people who are wealthy talk about what they're worth, I'm worth $3 million, $30 million, $300 million, they're talking about their net worth, which is all of your assets. It includes your house and your car, whatever you have in the bank, and whatever money you might have in a 401k plan or in your security and bonds, investments, and anything else of value that you own. So all those four-wheelers, all those, things, that is your net worth, or those are all of your assets. And so when people talk about how much they're worth, they're not just talking about I should say, how much they have in the bank, how much cash they have in the bank. They're talking about their assets minus their liabilities. These include credit card debt, student loan debt, outstanding mortgage, car loan, other kinds of loans that you might have. So you take your assets minus your total liabilities, and that equals your net worth. Financial plans don't have a set format, right? They can be as formal as you want them to be. They can be just a really bare bones plan to help you get from point A to point B. Although the good ones do tend to focus more or less on the same things, like how much income are you starting with, and what are your goals? Where do you want the money to go, and how are you going to get the money to grow over time? And we usually start this after calculating your net worth and your spending habits. We then explore your financial goals and figure out ways to make them achievable. This usually involves some form of budgeting and creating the means to put the money away each month, right? So if you say, okay, I have this money, if you put it in a coffee can and bury it in the backyard, and 10 years later, you go dig up the coffee can in the backyard, you're gonna have the same $100 that you buried. So we have to find the right savings or financial instrument to help that money grow through the time value of money by compounding interest, right? Or by the exposure to the stock market. Most of us do this to ensure that we live comfortably for the rest of our lives, because I don't want to work till I die. I want to be able to retire and then have what's called an afterlife, right? It's generally advisable to devise a retirement, risk management, and long-term investment strategy, and to keep your expenses to a minimum. The life cycle, or the stages of life, what this looks like is when we're young, we're not necessarily thinking about it so much. Millennials have really shattered that box because they got out of college and they started savings right away. They started investing right away. They started doing lots of things that generations before didn't do, right? So lots of people have begun to already put money away for their retirement and for their savings. They don't want to work till they're 65 or until they're 70, because, right, we grew up in houses with parents that worked and worked and worked until they were senior citizens. Then they were like, oh, we're going to travel, and they never traveled. Or, oh, we're going to take a cruise, and they took that cruise, and we're like, is that it? Anyway, right? The earlier you start, the better off you'll be, but not necessarily. It all depends on, right, how dedicated and committed you can be to the plan that you put in place. Even if you're 60 years old, you can still put a financial goal and still put a financial plan in place, right? Your goals should be, they should make sense if you're 60 and depending on when you want to retire, but you can still do it. You can still have a financial plan. Defining your goals is the key. Clearly defined goals. So I couldn't say I want to retire as a millionaire if I'm only saving $50 a month. I don't care what kind of math y'all do. It's not going to happen. but no one can tell you how to prioritize these goals. Financial planner can help, or you can figure it out. There's so many financial calculators online. You can put in your goals and say how much you're going to save every month, and they'll tell you based on, again, the time value of money. I have 10 years, I have 20 years, I have 30 years, I have 40 years, how long it'll take to reach that goal based on this amount of money that you're going to invest over time. Building an adequate retirement fund, for example, is an example of a financial goal, including creating an emergency fund, saving up for a down payment, starting your own business, right? Lots of people save money and then start their own business, because when you're going to the bank, you're like, yeah, my name's Toya Foster, and I'd like $250,000 because I really have this neat idea. I want to color these boiled eggs. They're not going to give me $250,000 because I believe in my product so much, right? So most people save the money to start their own business, get a good financial track record going, make some money, and then they go to the bank, and then they get the loan. There are numerous practical benefits to financial planning. It helps you increase your savings. It can help you enjoy a better standard of living, be prepared for emergencies, and most of all, attain a peace of mind. I'm going to say something really serious here, and that's when the pandemic started. One of the, not the first, because I thought we were all going to turn into zombies, not that thought, but one thought that I did have was, how am I going to get my money out of the bank, right? Once I realized it wasn't that kind of party, that it wasn't about all of that, I was like, okay, the stock market is still open. People are still trading on the market. My investment, my money hasn't disappeared. Everything is going to be okay. So I was able to enjoy a peace of mind knowing that even though we're all experiencing this really hard time, my money is still over there doing what it's supposed to do, doing what I set it up to do, which is grow. And then there are practical benefits of planning. I really just went over this, but most people assume that they would have to sacrifice their standard of living if their monthly bills, cover whatever, you're able to cover your monthly bills, and then you have to sort of put the rest away. Saving for retirement or saving for a car or a home, it does involve sacrificing. It means not spending all of your paycheck, right? Because you know you're going to get another one. It means not doing that. It means taking that money and putting it somewhere. But I can almost guarantee you that when you start putting money away and allowing your money to compound, when you go back and look at that money and you see the growth through your sacrifice and your hard work, you'll begin to say, oh my gosh, look what's possible. Look what I'm doing, and I'm not even really doing it. Yes, I'm bringing my lunch. I'm eating my lunch at my desk, or I'm not going to Chick-fil-A 3 or 4 times a week anymore. Look how much I've saved. It's important. It's really important. Okay. Jamie, do you have any final words that you want to talk about in terms of financial planning and budgeting?
Honestly, what I would just like to leave as my parting words is start out small. Start out with something that you feel is realistic for you, something that's manageable. Don't try to go into it and try to make these huge changes to your lifestyle, because it's not going to be maintainable. So start out with something that's realistic, something that might take you a little bit out of your comfort zone, but you're working towards that final goal, and it will become more and more manageable and comfortable over time. So that's the only last thing that I would like to say, but thank you all for joining us today. If you have any questions or any comments about financial planning or budgeting, please just, send it in the chat box and we'd be happy to answer. And if you think of any questions later, our email's at the bottom of this slide. So we're happy to answer later on too.
Thank you very much, Toya and Jamie. That was awesome.
Thank you. Thanks,
Thank you,
everybody.
guys.
Thanks.
Bye.
We'll see you guys later.
Yay.